So we're going to be talking about demonstration of object as self-portrait. But before we do any demonstrations, I want to show you an interesting exhibition, virtually show you. Louise Bourgeois, this is called an unfolding portrait. It was, I believe, at LACMA, we'll see in a second, and a whole thing. These are a bunch of her pictures, and there's one over here as portrait, and it furthers our conversation about ideas about what could be a portrait. Do Not Abandon Me, it says, is the title of this from 1999. She's a really famous artist. Um, did a lot of stuff with sculpture and knot work, and she has a big famous piece of public art called Maman, which is bronze. A lot of things in her work are about um, her mother and her relationship with her family tapestry business that she had to repair knotwork when she was a kid, and tapestries. And this is like a series of drawings that were part of this whole thing. And there she is finally in the middle of them all. In different versions of almost like printmaking on the paper. She's interested in materiality a lot because she's a sculptor as well, primarily is a sculptor, so she's letting the paper be very material and the edges show and changing it every time. There's eventually her showing imagery of herself, but a lot of it at first is, if you remember, if you saw it, is mostly the place, and the place is part of it, and so it's turning into something the way she's changing it every time. It's almost like a comic strip in a way, but it goes back to this sort of place. This one's called Hair. So this is the MoMA in New York, I believe. Yeah, it was at the MoMA in New York. She has, these are all like dry points. That means she etched a plate by scratching it and then did it by hand. Hand edition means she did them by hand. She probably used a printing press, but she added things to them by hand, I should say, with hand edition. Pretty interesting. It's how they become kind of surrealist, strange type of things. But that one she added pencil to. I'm trying to show you that there's all different ways of portraiture. There's variants. See, 5 of 13. So we're seeing a lot of variations. And she's ripping the paper, and she's okay with it not being exact. All that's intentional. So I think we could definitely benefit from looking at other things like this, because I think there's a lot of different ways of working. And this is an artist who's really interesting. Duchamp, he was famous for the ready-made. It says over here, he tore this quickly and he created this interesting piece. He tore 137 self-portraits by hand, one for each copy, placing a specialized fabricated zinc template on a silhouette against squares of origami paper. So this is really interesting. Again, he has famous works like the fountain, which is a found art objects, like a urinal that he called the fountain to play with all kinds of ideas of what you find and put in work. So there's a lot of ways of thinking about self-portraiture. And I think you don't, as you progress as artists, you don't necessarily have to only think of your work as being representational. But in this class, we're not going into this deep of experimentation. We're working on being observational, but we are playing with ideas that would be fruitful for other types of art making, which is thinking about things that stand in for other things in linguistics and how that relates to art. I just want to go back to this one again here, and this one's called Do Not Abandon Me. It shows how she's having the absence of the person be the idea of the person being there. And this is kind of going to what I was talking about with the shoes and the stance. So there's a lot of interesting ways. And I want you to think a lot about the object you pick and how you draw it. I think, I posted some more videos inside the module about drawing with charcoal um, because you need to see other people doing it in different ways. And I'm going to pull that up real quick and show you what I mean. I want you to watch this demonstration of value. It's an 8-minute video um, by a different artist because she does it differently than I do. She uses she uses the compressed charcoal things that little blocks that you're going to be using as well. Those are those shapes that look like pastels, but they're pure charcoal. We'll be using those for the texture project and the next week project as well. But she does it in a different way, so it's good for you to watch different things from different people because it's similar but a little different. It can kind of help you maybe unlock things you're not sure about. And then I want you to read this article. It's like literally 2 paragraphs about metonymy from the Encyclopedia Britannica, help you maybe make sense of it a bit more. So just have a few things for you to engage with to help you figure this out a bit more. So that's kind of takes us through the conceptual part of it. Then there's the how do you do it part of it, which is pretty basically, I mean, you could say it's exactly like how we've been drawing everything so far. When we went up to this week, we were drawing still lifes, figuring out how to measure things. All the way back, we've been working on this, so it's not like these are new ideas. You need to be using the clock face method, doing observation, and then adding the value to it like we've been doing all this time. So I think you guys know what you're doing. You've been doing it. Now you just have to believe in yourself and get set up and get an object that you want to draw, you think is interesting, and then start the process and start working on it. If you need help, please reach out to me and I'll email you back. We can do Zoom meetings. There's all kinds of ways I can help you, but if you don't reach out, I don't know if you need help. I have to assume that you're doing okay. So if you're having a hard time, please reach out and think of interesting objects you can draw, okay? You don't want it to be this simplistic. These are just examples of creative ways of doing it, and it needs to be observationally accurate, right? Like our slideshow. I just want to show you guys that there's a whole realm of creativity possible with this type of work, basically.